Chancellor Merkel, Mr. Steinlein, Dr. Hoyer, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your kind words and for this great honor. I am humbled to accept this prize, and I do so on behalf of the people of Jordan, who every day, through their words and actions, demonstrate the values that define the life of Walther Rathenau. Values such as courage and compassion, equality and understanding, tolerance and mutual respect. In other words, basic human decency. They're values that our two nations share, the linchpin of the lasting friendship between our people. Never more so than today, when our two nations find themselves at the forefront of a tragic humanitarian emergency. I'm talking, of course, about the exodus of thousands of Syrian refugees desperately seeking safety, sanctuary, and support. The reaction to this catastrophe by the people of Germany, by the German government, and by you, Chancellor Merkel, truly honors the memory of Walther Rathenau and breathes new life into his legacy. Imagine Rathenau's pride at the surge of volunteerism as Germans offer their time and energies to alleviate the suffering of others. Or the generosity of spirit we've seen as Germans donate goods to help Syrians who arrive with nothing but the clothes on their back. Or the Refugees Welcome Initiative, which matches refugees with German citizens willing to share their homes. The people of Germany are doing something that the author J.K. Rowling once described as thinking themselves into other people's minds and imagining themselves in other people's places. They are imagining what the refugees have endured and what they have lost, how exhausted they must be after long and dangerous journeys. They are imagining the anxiety of a mother clutching her baby, or the bewilderment of a grandfather who doesn't speak German. And by thinking themselves into the minds of those Syrians, the instinct to help took over. It's basic human decency. My late father-in-law, King Hussein, a man who personified humility and compassion, never made a decision before figuratively stepping into other people's shoes. And although there are large shoes to fill, I am inspired by my husband, King Abdullah, and the people of Jordan who embody this legacy. A legacy that guides humanitarian policy in Jordan to this day. At present, our small country, as you mentioned, hosts 1.4 million Syrians. That's 20% of our population. This, despite the fact that we're burdened by poverty and unemployment. Still, we do our best with what we have. And I could not be more proud of the selflessness and kindness of Jordanians. So that Syrian children could continue their education and heal, we opened our classroom doors, extended school hours, and many of our teachers worked double shifts. So that Syrians could have shelter and recover from the trauma of conflict, Jordanians welcomed refugees into their towns and supported them in practical ways with countless acts of kindness. So that Syrians' problems were not made worse by ill health, we, in partnership with the UN, have allowed them access to free healthcare, including public hospitals. And next week, as we celebrate the Muslim holiday of Eid al-Adha, I know that those blessed with good fortune will share what they have with those who have lost so much. It's about empathy. But without empathy, there can be no compassion. And without compassion, we weaken the very foundations of our common humanity. In a world of Insta-27 connections, where nothing remains local, where a distant crisis can make its way to our doorstep, and where a conversation anywhere can resonate everywhere, decency is the strongest currency our global family has. And yet, in too many places, I fear it's being devalued. Sometimes through the destructive and misleading power of a simple word. Use a headline, hashtag, or soundbite often enough, and it makes its way into our mindsets, whether it's right or not. Here's an example: refugee or migrant. You could be forgiven for thinking they're one and the same because they seem to be used interchangeably. But they're not the same. Migrants choose to move for any number of reasons, for work, for education, to reunify their families. Migrants can choose to return home, and they still have a government to protect them. Refugees, on the other hand, are people fleeing war or persecution across an international border. They have no choice but to run for their lives, and thus they are entitled under international law to protection and asylum, to justice and dignity. Instead, we're confronted with shocking and heartbreaking scenes: seas strewn with bodies, makeshift camps, desert graves, trucks turned to deathbeds, and the defining image of this tragedy: children washed up on the shore, the flotsam and jetsam of a conflict they were too young to understand. Rather than evoke an unprecedented tide of human kindness, some segments of society have instead unleashed a new and ugly lexicon in our news feeds. Where once the word refugee rightly aroused feelings of empathy and compassion, now refugees and migrants have merged. Stripped of their true definitions, they are referred to with blunt pejoratives, as if some lives have lesser value than others. Invaders, marauding foreigners, and worse. It reminds me of some graffiti by the British artist Banksy, who wrote on a wall, "I see humans, but no humanity." Because not only do these labels not begin to describe the horrors refugees have endured, but there is evidence to suggest that such language influences the way we think, in subtle ways, in ways we may not even be aware of. And that is the real danger. That over time, labels obscure a person's humanity and allow suspicion to creep in and intolerance to build, fear to take root and walls to go up. Each sideways glance, each derogatory comment, each label eroding our most precious commodity: basic human decency. Ladies and gentlemen, being caught in a war doesn't make people less deserving of human kindness. It makes them all the more reliant on it. Here's another two words that are often misused with equally devastating consequences: Muslim and extremist. One is a follower of Islam, my beloved religion of peace, compassion, and understanding. The other is irreligious, evil, and has no regard for the sanctity of human life. The two are not related. In fact, they could not be further apart. But many continue to use such phrases as Muslim extremist or extremist Islamic terrorists, labels that not only carry assumptions about the character of millions of good and decent people, but that set in motion a downward spiral of mistrust and miscommunication. But look beyond the label, and we quickly realize that we are more alike than we are different. Look beyond Muslim to see a caring father, beyond Sunni or Shia to see a loving husband. Look beyond the name Abdullah Kurdi to see a courageous man who was just trying to keep his family safe by fleeing war-torn Syria. His wife and children drowned. A tidal wave of despair washed 3-year-old Aylan and his 5-year-old brother Galib to the shore. The image of Aylan is forever seared into our consciousness. Long may it stay there. And let it remind us that no matter where we come from, how we dress or what language we speak, who we worship or how we got here, that in the end, we share the same dreams and want the same things: safety and security for our loved ones, happy, thriving children, a sense of accomplishment at the end of the day, and the belief that if we imagine a better, more prosperous future, we can achieve it. But to find lasting solutions to this crisis, we must follow King Hussein's example and view the crisis from the vantage point of Europeans as well. Many, not unreasonably, may see refugees landing at their shores and borders as strangers, destitute people from a different country who speak a different language and follow a different faith. For some, they may see more than just strangers, but rather threats to their beliefs and way of life, and a strain on their economy and social services. maybe even a risk to their own security. Their instinct may be to bolt the door, not out of malice, but out of fear of the unknown. This is where we all must work together, urgently. Compassion and courage alongside pragmatism. It's about helping people in host communities understand what refugees want most: shelter, safety, and peace. Because those are the very things that they were denied from the countries in which they escaped. Today, we face a crisis of exceptional magnitude, one that demands exceptional solutions. Piecemeal measures won't work. Rather, this is an opportunity for the global community, Europe, the Middle East, and the rest of the world, to devise a cohesive and comprehensive policy that serves the interests of all. It's not about whether nations should accept refugees or which nations should accept refugees, but rather a collective response. A response that begins with, what practical measures can we take together? Can we, for example, work with governments, UNHCR, and NGOs to identify and register refugees? Find resources, as Germany is doing, to provide reception centers, shelter, provide language lessons, schooling, and job training to help refugees recover so that when the time is right, they can return home to rebuild their shattered lives. The alternative serves the interest of no one. To do nothing would be an unforgivable failure that calls into question the very phrase, global family. Denying refugees their basic rights risks creating a defeated and disillusioned generation who, at their most desperate, could be susceptible to extremist ideology. Ladies and gentlemen, we live at a time where disruption, creative or destructive, technological, demographic, or ideological, is a defining feature of our world. Regardless of what form it takes, disruption pushes us outside our comfort zone. Those who've been there know that it is the place where we truly feel alive, where we redefine the boundaries of what is possible, and where the exhilaration and rawness of emotions empower us to break away from hardwired patterns of belief and behavior. It is where our creativity is unleashed, our vision expanded, and our hearts opened. From that place, let us all imagine a sustainable solution to the crisis we face today, one that honors the phrase, global family. So, thank you, Chancellor Merkel, for your courageous leadership and inspiration, and thank you to the people of Germany, Jordan, and others who have extended the hand of humanity to strangers in need. As difficult as it is, I hope this tragedy can be a force for good, an opportunity for everyone involved in this crisis to do the right thing, to imagine ourselves into each other's places, to step into other people's shoes, and to venture outside our comfort zones. Let that be the legacy of Little Aylan, a tide of human kindness lapping gently at our shores and at our borders. Thank you all very much.